Okay, so good morning, guys. Today is Monday, May 18th, and today what I'm going to do is cover the last sections of this module and address any questions you guys have about missing assignments and upcoming assignments. So for the nervous system module, we are nearing the end. In fact, the only assignment you have left is the last one. Let me go to my updates page though, so I can address some questions that just came up. Myrtle just asked about some missing work, and I actually emailed everyone this morning about missing work. So I know that you're not alone in that question, Myrtle. So, and everyone else. So if you look up here on your calendar, remember I had posted the quiz for last Friday. I know some of you emailed me over the weekend about the quiz. You couldn't make it because of AP testing, and I totally understand. So please don't worry about that. What I did actually was I put the quiz for today, so that way it's not later, it's not showing up as a late or a zero or anything. And in fact, if you do see anything popping up as a zero, I'm only doing that so that you can see that you have work missing. I had told people that I know that you're busy during AP week and everything, so I also haven't sent any phone calls home about missing work. I just emailed people because I know you guys are responsible enough. You can get it done, but I'm just letting you know that the quiz, you can still turn it in. Your last assignment for this module is going to be that pathology of nervous system. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. But yes, if you have any missing assignments, if you go into my module, the only assignments that I believe most people haven't completed, obviously no one has done this one. I think only one student has done the summative assessment, but this is the last one. And similar to the endocrine system module, guys, you're going to pick a pathology, and the pathologies are listed in my notes. If you weren't here last week because of APs, if you just go to the very last slide on my notes, here are the pathologies that are mentioned in the book. Can you guys see this slide, the pathology slide?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the pathologies you can choose from. Obviously, I've been focusing a lot in this class on strokes and concussions from the videos I've been talking about. But again, there's lots, right, that you can choose from. So that is the pathology assignment. That's the last assignment. Any questions about that assignment? Because we read this already in Zoom classes. We've read it at least 2 or 3 times, I believe. But I know some of you haven't been here because of AP. So any questions about this? Daniel, do you have any questions about this project?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Myrtle, Daisy, Anna,
No.
you got all good?
No.
Okay. All right, cool, cool. Okay, so I know none of you guys have started this yet, and last time what I did is I sent out an email asking if you're going to work solo or groups. I'm not going to do that. That's just one less email for me. I know you guys are responsible. You guys will get it done. So just note that I put that for this Friday. We only have a few weeks left of school. So I really just want to finish this module and then just be done. The very last module for next week is going to be the lymphatic, also known as the immune system. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I know we're getting close to finals. Um, I'm not going to make this a big module. The lymphatic system, spoiler alert, is going to be much smaller than all of these. It's not going to have like, 5 or 6 assignments for all these. I'm thinking like half of that, if that's okay with you, just because, we all have lots of things we need to do to end the school year. So let's just finish the nervous system module out with a bang, and that's by doing your pathology project. The other work that has been assigned, like I said, some of you didn't get a chance to do the formative assessment, so that quiz is open as of now. Okay, so you can do that after this class. And then the discussion board. Some of you didn't do that also, I noticed. So please don't be concerned about the zero for now. I'm not counting like late work. I just want the work to be done. I know a lot of people have been missing Zoom because of AP, so please don't worry about that. So any questions about anything I just said? Thumbs up if I can move on. Or if you have any questions, ask it now, guys. That's what I want these Zoom classes to be. Now that we're limited to 40 minutes, like I can't just be like lecture, lecture, lecture. I really just want to take questions. So any questions about anything here, guys? So I'm good to move on?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So then let's go ahead and just wrap up this module then. So the last thing I wanted to do, if you look at your assignments folder, just connecting the dots because we've been on this module for 2 weeks now. We started talking about concussions. We got into the function of the nervous system in general, and for those of you that took the quiz, and I know not all of you have in this group, so I won't say too much, but in the quiz, I also hit heavy on the function of the nervous system and how trauma can impact function. So that's all I'll say about that. But just know that I'm really trying to get you to understand what could happen if there is injury to the brain and how that could affect overall functioning in the body. So that's what these videos kind of all correlate to. And the summary or the summative assessment has to do with basically that, right? How can one thing impact another thing, right? So that's kind of the general theme in this class, was how one system affects another system. So hopefully you've gotten the point of what I've been trying to get across to you. And again, if you haven't been here for the past Zoom meetings, please just watch these videos. I think they're really insightful and they'll help with your quiz, especially those of you who haven't done your quiz. And it should really help with your summative assessment project. The reading assignments, I think every person in this group has already done the reading assignments. Those were the Newsella articles. That one wasn't too bad. And so the last thing I wanted to cover with you guys is just the last bit of notes. So let's go into the last section of the notes. And like I said, I really just want to take questions about it. I'll start with this slide. So in the quiz, I talk a lot about the lobes. I talk a lot about the cerebral cortex. And the reason is because us, well, mammals, I should say, humans and mammals in particular, have a higher brain functioning, as they call it in neuroscience, and that's because we have generally thought of the outermost, most complex region of the brain, which is what we call the prefrontal cortex or the cerebral cortex. It's essentially the top layer of the brain. So the brain is divided into three developmental areas, which we call the hindbrain or the primitive brain. Some people call it the reptilian brain. It's the part of the brain which includes the brainstem and the cerebellum area that is responsible for just like basic survival functioning, like breathing, heart rate, circulation, things like that. But our outermost brain, which is this here, is unique to us humans. The way that this brain is structured, and so what I wanted you guys to do today originally was I wanted us to, as a group, illustrate the brain and discuss functioning. However, I noticed not everyone in this group has actually done the quiz, so I don't know if we should do that because that may give away some answers to the quiz. So what I'll do instead, since we're such a small group, is I'll just take any questions you guys have about this slide or this part of the brain. So what questions do you guys have about this slide here? Or who can tell me what they understand about the cerebral cortex in this slide here? No one has any questions about this? Hello? How about the diencephalon? What questions do you guys have about this? So again, guys, like I said, I want to use these shorter Zoom sessions as Q&A. So I'm asking you, do you guys have questions about this? Yes or no?
No.
the brainstem. Questions about this?
No, I'm good with that.
You're good with that? Okay. The cerebellum. And this was actually this was the point where we left off last Wednesday. Obviously, I didn't check in with you guys on Friday. For those of you who didn't see my message, I had something I had to attend, so I wasn't here Friday. So last Wednesday, this is where we left off, and that actually concludes the brain. So unfortunately, we are not in class, and I couldn't, like, I in my lab in the back, I had like specimens. So my goal was I wanted to show you the models of the brains that we have, and we were going to talk about nervous system functioning, and I wanted to test some of your reflexes. And because of what happened, we're obviously not in class, and this is what we're resorting to, is learning online. But I hope that at least this has been somewhat useful for you, and hopefully you took something away from this. And so the last part of the nervous system that we hadn't had a chance to talk about is the peripheral nervous system. And so one of the quiz questions, and that's why I'm going to kind of watch my words here, because not everyone has taken the quiz, but the quiz talks a lot about how the peripheral and the central nervous system work together. And so the last component of the peripheral nervous system, which we haven't talked about, is the breakdown of the peripheral nervous system. And if you recall, I started this module with this slide right here. And we're looking at now, hold on, I'm going to turn on my pen here. We're looking at this right here. And so, like I said, one of my quiz questions, actually a few of my quiz questions, relate to reflexes and how the peripheral nervous system works along with sensory neurons, also known as afferent neurons, motor neurons, efferent neurons. So I won't say too much about that, but I guess I'll just remind you guys to really look at this chart, those of you that haven't taken the quiz. And before I say too much and step on my own toes, who can tell me their interpretation of this chart, the section I just circled? Who can tell me like kind of what this chart means to them and how it helps them understand the fight or flight response? Someone. Anyone, or I'll just call names. Or I'll just end the class, because I really just want to take Q&A. So please, someone speak up.
Isn't like okay? So okay, I'm gonna try to explain it because it's kind of hard for me to explain.
Okay.
But so the PNS is like could be divided into the somatic nervous system
Mm-hmm.
and the autonomic
Mm-hmm.
nervous system,
Uh-huh.
and then so the autonomic nervous system is more like of what kind of like affects with like the fight or flight response, because the parasympathetic is like when you're relaxed and resting, and then sympathetic is the fight or flight response, and then they release, I don't know, there's like certain neurotransmitters like for each,
Mm-hmm.
which like cause the reaction. I don't know the names like exactly.
Good. Does anyone? You're right on it, Daniel. Does anyone remember the names of those neurotransmitters for the sympathetic and the parasympathetic? There's a few that I did mention in my notes that allow that part of the nervous system, like Daniel said, to function. Does anyone remember the names of those? When you think of fight or flight, a word should come to mind. When you think of fight or flight, like acting, right? And that's what it says, action. What term that we've been talking about in the last couple of modules comes to mind when we say fight or flight?
Action?
Okay. And can you think of any type of chemical message we've been talking about that causes you to act?
Hormones.
Okay, good. And there is a hormone in particular that is associated with that. Do you remember the name of that, Daisy?
Is it epinephrine?
It is epinephrine. And epinephrine is actually a 2-for-1. It is a neurotransmitter, but it is also a hormone. And the definition of a hormone is something that is secreted from a gland and travels through the bloodstream. So in the last module, we did talk about epinephrine, like Daisy said, as a hormone, and that's because it's obviously released from the adrenal glands, which is, the definition of a gland, and it's released in the bloodstream to affect a target cell. However, it's also a neurotransmitter that travels through nerves. So that hormone slash neurotransmitter is pretty unique in that it does more than one thing. So you're absolutely right. It is the reason we are able to act. And then there is kind of like an opposite reaction, like Daniel said, that causes the reverse effect in the parasympathetic nervous system. And when you think of the peripheral nervous system, remember, we're just talking about unconscious movement, things that you don't have control over, and they're more the functioning of the body that's necessary for homeostasis. Because if you think about this, right, if you didn't react to a stressful situation, and if you were not able to then oppositely react or come to rest, like Daniel said, then imagine you're always high on epinephrine and always heart pumping and blood pumping. You'd obviously have a heart attack and probably die, right? So you need a homeostatic or a balancing um, reaction to that. And let me just delete my drawings here, sorry. The name of that hormone is, hold on, I'm trying to go back to my original slide here. So for that voluntary and involuntary action, there are hormones that we talked about. So epinephrine epinephrine and norepinephrine are the names of the hormones that give us that fight or flight response. And the opposite neurotransmitter for that is called acetylcholine. So what I wanted to talk about now is, well, what does that have to do with afferent and efferent neurons? Okay, and so actually, I just remember this is one of my quiz questions in a sense. So here's what I'll say: is when you think of the somatic nervous system, the somatic, like it says here in parentheses, is the voluntary of the two, meaning this is the one that you can consciously control. And so the somatic is made up of neurons that we refer to as afferent and efferent. This is easy to remember. Think of effect, right? That's what efferent neurons are. Afferent neurons with an A are the neuron, and here I'll put something in parentheses. These you can think of as sensory, and efferent you can think of as the motor neurons, right? So in that sense, this is how you are in control of your somatic nervous system. Can someone give me an example of a somatic nervous system function? And let's use the word sensory and motor to explain how it works. And I'll go back to this chart here again. Just muted myself. Let me go back to that chart. And using the words afferent and efferent, who can explain to me the somatic nervous system? How about Anna? Would you mind explaining to us the somatic nervous system using the terms afferent and efferent?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the somatic nervous system is made up of two neurons, which you can see here. One of them is motor neurons, and the other neuron is sensory neurons. So can you explain to us or give us an example of how the somatic nervous system works using the terms efferent and afferent neurons, Anna?
Okay. when the doctor hits you on the knee,
Mm-hmm.
the afferent receives a stimuli from the world, I guess, from the outside world,
Okay.
and the efferent neuron carries the message, and in that case sends it to the leg, the muscle of the leg.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you're actually describing a reflex, Anna,
Oh.
which is true. However, part of a reflex is you're forgetting the in between that we call an interneuron. So you're partially correct. I'll accept it because yes, the afferent and efferent is involved in a reflex, but as part of a reflex, remember reflexes you do not have control over. So that would not be somatic.
Oh.
That would technically be autonomic, but I get what you're saying. And actually, let me show that chart again. So this is what you're describing, Anna. You're describing how a stimulus, uh, a stimulus is in the case of the doctor's office, the little hammer they hit you on the knee, that knee receives a signal, which we would call the afferent or sensory neuron. But the difference is there's an interneuron in a reflex, and the interneuron, which you'll notice is part of the spinal cord, Anna, it takes care of the work for you, meaning you don't have to do anything. It relays the message on its own through the spinal cord to have a response or effect, which is what the efferent neuron is. But notice here, there is no you. There is no you deciding or not deciding to move your knee. So that's what reflexes are. So I know they sound similar, but what you just described, Anna, is not conscious, or you actually described unconscious control. So careful there because they are not the same. But I got what you meant, Anna. So thank you so much. So that's the somatic nervous system, and what you just described for us is the autonomic. Anna, let's go ahead and just end it here. Can you read us what is the autonomic nervous system? Then I'll wrap up.
Autonomic nervous system uses cranial and spinal nerve pathways to carry out tasks to maintain stable internal environment for the body.
Yeah, and so what you described as a reflex is a special case. It's so not everything in your autonomic nervous system is a reflex, right? That's like one unique thing. You don't have reflexes throughout your body. You don't have reflexes that maintain homeostasis for you, right? That's just one unique example. But the way the autonomic nervous system generally works is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, which Daniel already described for us. So that's basically the peripheral nervous system. So the somatic is the easier one to understand. It's just the afferent and efferent neurons, but you do have conscious control over. So that was the difference, Anna, right, the conscious versus unconscious. Whereas the autonomic, it is totally involuntary or unconscious, and the way that it is unconscious is because you have these kind of internal systems that work for you without you, and that is the sympathetic and parasympathetic. And the way they're able to work is because there are neurotransmitters that are doing the work for you. And neurotransmitters, if you read in my notes, are essentially, well, actually, because that's one of my quiz questions, can someone tell me what are neurotransmitters and how do they work? How about Myrtle? What are neurotransmitters and how do they work? Myrtle? Or Daisy? Can you tell us what neurotransmitters are? I just noticed we have about 10 minutes, guys.
Is it the one that sends signals?
Yeah. And how does it send signals? So I'll go back to this last diagram, Myrtle, because this is actually like the last slide. So I'll just go back to this neurotransmitter signal, and we'll just end here. Oh, no, actually, wrong one. Sorry. Where's my neurotransmitter? Right here. So we'll look at this last slide, and this wraps up the nervous system. So using this slide, Myrtle, or your own words, can you tell us how those neurotransmitters work in the case of the autonomic nervous system?
Um,
Get some help?
yeah.
Okay, who'd like to be Myrtle's lifeline? Who can help?
So I don't know if it's right, but I think that it's the so they like send signals through the neurons where like it's like a chemical messenger, right?
Mm-hmm. And where would it
Um,
start? So let's use this diagram together, Daisy. So if I want to send a signal, I think you can draw on my screen, right? Can you tell me where would that signal start from using this picture? Or you can use one of the words and I'll illustrate for you. But can you tell me if I am sending the chemical signal, where would it begin?
would it be in the in the synapse?
No, I guess that's where it'll
And
go, but that's not where it
like
begins.
the nucleus or
No.
the dendrite?
Yeah, exactly. So it would
The
come,
dendrites.
exactly. It would come from the dendrites. So imagine that, here's the brain, right? And then here's the spinal cord, and then here's the nerves, right? So whatever the brain is telling us to do, right? The brain says, move this, respond to that. The signal comes from remember, the central nervous system is named that because it is the boss, right? So if we're talking about a voluntary movement like the kind that Anna described, then if we want to walk, for example, that brain would send that signal to tell you what to do. But if it's an involuntary, like the one that Anna kind of described, but I think Daniel described it a little more proficiently, then that would not involve the brain, right? But wherever it comes from, that signal, it originates from the dendrite. The dendrite is what receives that signal. All right, so the signal travels, and then where does it go, Daisy? So it comes from the dendrite, then where does it go?
Does it go down to the cell body?
So it goes through the cell body, also known as the what?
Soma?
The soma, and then where does it go? And again,
Um,
it can come from multiple dendrites, right? So then where does it go?
yeah,
I'm listening to you.
the axon.
Very good. So it goes to the axon, and then where does it go? So I'm going down the axon. Oops. And then where does it go? Then where does it go?
To the synapse.
Yeah, and where are the synapses located, Daisy?
Um, like
Or Daniel, where are the synapses located?
Aren't they located at the ends of like
The ends of what?
the axon?
Exactly. So on the quiz, a couple of people confuse this. It's not the same thing. The synapse is, like Daniel said, it's at the end of the axons, which we call the terminal. But this section here, this little nubby, ends of them that look like, like the ends of like tentacle suction cups, those are called terminals or terminus. So the terminus is where the signal travels after the axon, and then it goes to the synapse, Daisy. The synapse is the gap in between this terminus and the next neuron. That's what the synapse is. Okay, so from axon, it goes to terminus or terminal, then it goes synapse, then it goes to the next neuron. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And there are a couple of terms here that we need to be aware of. So obviously, you already described dendrite to me. You already showed, or I showed, but I just followed your direction where the axon is. What's this blue thing here, though? We haven't talked about. What's this little blue outer layer?
Is it the myelin sheath?
Yeah, it's the myelin sheath, and the myelin sheath, remember, has a function. Does anyone remember the name of that glia cell? What does the myelin sheath do? What does that glia cell do?
It protects.
Uh-huh. It's a protector, but it's also kind of like an insulator, right? So think of like in a house. Um, the more insulation you have, you don't get hot in the summer, you don't get super cold in the winter. So it's a protective barrier, but the more myelin sheathing you have, the more efficient the neurons work because of this barrier. So the diseases or the pathologies that you get to choose from, some of them involve the myelin sheathing. Some of them involve, permanent damage to neurons. So just be aware that myelin sheath is very important, like in the case of Alzheimer's disease in particular. So very good. So that actually wraps up how the peripheral nervous system works. And so I'll just go to the very last slide, and I'll take any questions you guys have, because that's it. That was the last one, and then my last slide obviously is the pathologies. So I think I have about 3 or 4 minutes left. So what questions do you guys have for me about any parts of the nervous system, the brain, reflexes, glia cells, neurons, anything, neurotransmitters? And notice for the neurotransmitters, I only listed you like 6, I think, only ones that I thought were the most important. Any questions about that stuff, guys, before we wrap up? Myrtle, questions? Daisy, do you have any questions?
No.
Daniel,
No, I'm good.
you good? Anna?
No.
Okay. So, obviously, guys, this is this is not easy to learn anatomy online without models, without manipulatives, without like interaction, without working together. So I really appreciate all of you that are on it. Some of you in this group right now have done like every single assignment. So kudos to you. And those of you that aren't, I know you're going to do it. And again, I'm trying my best to not overwhelm you, which is why I'm pushing back the assignments. But notice that I'm keeping all my assignments very, very consistent. Like I always follow my same structure. I don't surprise you with anything. It's always like do this, this, and then that. So I hope that at least that consistency that I'm offering you is somewhat of a comfort, that I'm not, stressing you out with just like assignments out of nowhere and stacking up, busy work, because none of this is busy work. It all leads to something. So if you are having, issues or stress, or you just need help, like I said, this Zoom class, it is set to 40 minutes now, but I have time, guys, and I will definitely support you in any way I can. So after we end this class, if you need to talk to me, we can do a private Zoom, or we can email, we can whatever. Just reach out to me, please. Okay, is that understood, guys?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, thank you, guys. So we'll go back to the Schoology page, and I'll wrap up here, but I just want to make sure you guys know what's coming up. So what is the assignment that you still have to do, guys?
The summative assessment.
Just the summative, right? So like last time, uh, most people did PowerPoints and Prezis. Same deal, okay? I thought that was nice. Update. Actually, let me show you guys something before class ends. I hope you guys are reading my feedback, because if you didn't get the grade you wanted, give me a thumbs up if you read my feedback. because I give you feedback for every single assignment. So I will click on your discussion boards, for example. Like I really hope people know why I'm giving them the grade I'm giving them. Like I don't just like comment on here for you, like, you know, I don't just comment there, but if you click on your rubrics, for example, I also, and I won't click on anyone's particular name because then you'll see their grades, but please note that I do give you feedback, guys. So even for the last summative assessment, the endocrine one, for example, let me just click on it so I can show you where your feedback is. So if I were to click on, and I won't click it because then you'll see their grade, but if I were to click on Seren's, for example, you would see the grade I gave her plus comments I gave her telling her why I didn't give her full credit. So please, please, please know that this takes me a lot of time and a lot of effort to grade all these things. And I do read everything you submit to me. So if you didn't get a full credit last time, if it was something as simple as like you didn't cite, or you forgot to include more diagrams, or you didn't explain, just read my feedback, please, and get the full credit you deserve, okay? Because I know you guys are working hard, all right? So for Wednesday, I'm pretty much done with this module. So I'm okay with this Wednesday just being you guys working on your summative assessment project. Just like last time, meaning you don't need to check in with me on Wednesday unless you really, really need me. But all I really want you to do is finish the summative assessment so you can turn it in Friday. Does that sound like a plan?
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys. So then I'll see you Friday with projects unless you need to talk to me Wednesday, but I will be available. So what I'll do Wednesday, guys, is I'll just record a Zoom. You're welcome to attend, but it'll just be like a check-in. Here's where we are. Here's what the summative assessments are. And then, you know, I'll be available. I'll just open up the line for anyone that wants to jump into the Zoom, because now that they're so much shorter, I don't expect anyone really needs any support, but if you do, you're welcome to come in Wednesday. Otherwise, I'll see you Friday. Sound good, guys?
Yes.
All right, guys.
Yes.
Have a beautiful week. We're nearing the end. Next Monday we'll be on the very last module, and I promise you guys it'll be a short one because school's almost over. Okay. So have a nice day, guys, and I'll see you Friday. Okay. Stay safe. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.